Hi, everyone. This is Krista Moore with The Krista Moore Show. Thanks for joining us today. This show is brought to you by K Coaching as a new way to learn from industry experts and thought leaders as I interview them and they share their success stories and their growth ideas. And today, I love our subject because it's so needed and it's so timely. So I'm hoping that we can help you get on the fast track to your success. My special guest today is president and founder of her own company called Knowledgeance Associates, and it's Lisa Dennis. Lisa, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, Krista. How are you?
I'm doing terrific. I hope you are.
I am. Thank you.
And Lisa and I, actually, we belong to an organization called Women Sales Professionals. And that's where I first met you and was really impressed with the type of work that you're doing. So I've been anxious to have you on the call today.
I'm thrilled to be here. I really am. The show is awesome.
So tell me a little bit more about yourself, your experience, your background, so that our audience can get to know you.
Sure. I've spent half my career on the marketing side of the house and half on the sales side of the house. And I started my business 22 years ago. Can't believe it's been that long. I focus on marketing strategy, go-to-market plans, value propositions, and a lot of work on messaging. On the sales side, sales process, sales enablement, and over the years, I've done a lot of sales training. But I think my big thing is I'm trying to make sure that the messaging we develop in marketing gets pulled through to sales, and both of those things are buyer focused. That's really what I'm all about.
Yeah, and when you talk about buyer focus and also value proposition, I kind of want to define those two terms, if you would please, for our audience. So first, what do you mean by value proposition? And then what do you mean by buyer focused?
Sure. So I have my own definition. There are lots of value definitions. Mine is that a value proposition demonstrates your knowledge about your buyer's situation, objectives, or goals, your specific offer to address that, and then what differentiates you from alternatives. Most important part of that definition is that it demonstrates your knowledge about them. It's not really supposed to demonstrate your knowledge about your own product and service, because that's a given.
Mm-hmm.
So be buyer focused. You have to weave in that knowledge about what your buyers are trying to do. What are they challenged or faced with? And that becomes the fabric of your value prop. And then you attach to that only the things that absolutely matter and are specific to their challenge.
Yeah, so what I heard, and I really liked what you were describing, was it's understanding what your buyers' challenges are, what their objectives are, so that you can turn that around, speak back to them, in their language, so to speak, and that be the main part of your message, opposed to it being about you.
Exactly. And traditionally, and even up till now, most value props are product, service, solution centric. I was a product manager for years and I started doing that. But the reality is, if you do that, you're now competing with everybody else's product service messaging and you don't stand out really. So it makes it very hard for a buyer to making them do a lot more work in figuring out which of these are actually relevant to me.
Well, and when I think about value prop in the terms that we're discussing it right now, many people might think a value proposition is, if you're a company today or a salesperson on the line today and you're thinking your value proposition is about you, we can do this, this, and this, then that's not what we're referring to. What we're suggesting is the necessity to change it up and to make it more buyer focused. And that's something that you kind of talk about how important it is to be doing this now because of the new decade. Why do you see that sense of urgency and really associated with the new decade?
Over the past 10 years, the buyer is really in the power position. They've taken over the conversation. They've taken over the sales cycle. They're driving the bus. And if you haven't made that switch to more buyer-focused messaging and value props, you're getting really left behind. So the new decade is in a perfectly appropriate time to get on board. and to sort of look at all your value props and figure out, where do I stand today and what are the things that I need to do to do a value prop that's buyer first, that's super relevant, and that's going to help advance me in the conversations I need to have.
And when I think about the new decade, and I'm thinking about, gosh, look at what's happened in the past 10 years, how things have shifted and changed,
Right.
in terms of the customer's needs, the competitors, more digital marketing, means and ways of prospecting and sales process. I mean, there's so many changes that have taken place, right? And it's getting increasingly more and more competitive. So I heard you talk about differentiation, and kind of wanted to maybe talk through, what would you say the 3 things or the 3 key reasons why you want to switch up your messaging to be more buyer focused, buyer centric? Why don't we kind of break that down a little bit for the group?
So I mentioned relevance. Relevance is really important. I did a study with IDG a few years ago, and the #1 complaint that buyer decision makers have is a lack of relevance. We asked them which were the most relevant and the least relevant value props they evaluate. The highest was only 70%, and the lowest was 35%. So from a differentiation standpoint, if you can be more relevant than that, you're going to stand out.
So when you say relevant, do you mean your message is relating to that buyer in a more intimate, personal way?
Exactly. And that, requires understanding a lot about your target audience, and then using that information and pulling it right into the value prop and starting out with that. That's the way you get to the second step, which is getting more engagement. If you're going to put in front of me that's relevant, I'm more likely to take a step forward to frame, or I have to sort out you and 3 other vendors, right?
Yeah. So something that I was just thinking about, and some of the folks on the line might be familiar with us, we have this process called objective-based coaching, or changing conversations is the training module. And it really aligns to what you're talking about. It is understanding the buyer's current objectives and what their circumstances are, what their needs are.
Yes.
And addressing all of that before you tell them what it is that you do. And
Correct.
then being able to have proof points around that. So it's not just a talking head salesperson, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. And when you're talking about what it is that you do, you're connecting it specifically to what their needs are. And I'm hearing that as relevance. Is that another way to describe that?
It is. I think a lot of times on the marketing side of the house, we don't be very focused on product and service and solution, because that's what we're being paid to do, right? And therefore the sales folks have to somehow make that relevant. Now, the really good ones will try to do the translation, right?
Okay.
That's about the top 25% of any given sales team. Either make it up, or they're going to serve up what they've been handed, which isn't translated into buyer language 9 times.
So it might be generic. I guess that's what I think. So the marketing message might be generic, and now it's up to the sales professional to take it and make it unique and specific to that particular customer they're having the conversation with.
Correct. Absolutely. And the thing is, you could say, well, that's what the salesperson's job is. But realize that I've seen some recent research that says most companies are only evaluating maybe 3 vendors, and one of them's an incumbent. And so your ability to cut through the noise has got to happen up front on the marketing side, because you could get disqualified before it ever goes to a salesperson. You're not even in play. So you've got to up your relevance early to be able, otherwise you're going to lose your shot.
Well, that also makes something else come to mind. And I think this is also aligns with the changes that are taking place in the new decade, that sales process and sales approach, it gets more and more difficult to get an appointment and to kind of break through that noise. So by having more of a relevant message, that's going to shorten the sales cycle. I think that kind of goes without saying, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. How many emails do you and I get, or LinkedIn requests and you and I get, where they're literally talking about their solution right out of the gate? Do you have any interest, or do you know anybody? And could you let me know? Well, I delete every one of those out of hand.
Yeah.
Why are you talking to me? How is this even remotely relevant to me? And many of them are not. And so that approach is just like done to death, and people are pushing away from it.
Well, on the flip side of that, I get a ton of them, right? We do. And I got one that was different. I received one that they knew about my book. They knew that I was making a transition, and they weren't trying to sell something as much as they were trying to start a relationship. And I accepted that one. So
Absolutely.
that's a great example of all they did was change up their messaging to be more about me and not putting me in a box of business coach. So I must need leads,
Exactly. So you took that step forward. That caused the relevance brought us to engagement, which is exactly what we do.
That's a great example. So another thing that I'm learning here too is, and from a marketing perspective, once you create that value proposition, then it can be repurposed in a variety of different ways, whether it's through social marketing, whether it's through the sales pitch, whether it's through content or copy on the website. That's where that consistency has to take place, right?
Absolutely. I too often see sales messaging and value prop messaging that's completely disjointed, or you've got sales reps who are all delivering their own version of a value prop. I like to, when I'm in a room full of people doing a workshop, I like to ask everybody, please write down what you think the value prop is of this solution right now. And I have them read it out loud. And it's shocking how varied and how different they are. So think about that. That message is being fractured across your buyer's audience. What we're trying to do is to get them to understand us. We're not trying to confuse them, but that ends up being the result if you don't have integrated messaging.
Yeah, and another point, and I know I've heard the exact stats, but I'm going to take a shot at what I remember. It used to take like 7 touches to get an appointment. Now it's more like 14. It's twice as many because of all the noise and because of all the different methods to try and reach out to potential prospects. And it's just kind of crowded out there. You've got to stand out even more than ever.
You do. I think you need to kind of mix up the channels that you use. So people do what they're comfortable with, but it should be a combination of emails. It should be phones. It should be ghost calls. It should be LinkedIn. Maybe there should be some Twitter, right? You've got to kind of figure out and plan it out. The other thing is that you don't want to deliver the message up front and then keep checking in, right? So take a look at it. If you build out what I call a value proposition platform, it's more than just a value proposition pitch or an elevator pitch. So you have more content to work with, and you can literally deliver pieces of that story as you go along throughout your cadence. So
in
it's
different ways.
Reeling them in and looking to see which of these helped, was more engaging. That's another way to test your messaging.
Yeah. Now that second word that you used as kind of reasons why having this buyer message was so important was engagement. And we didn't really talk too deeply about that, but what I'm sensing is you will get the engagement then if they're connecting with that. And you use that term mirror a lot, like think about the buyer as though you're looking in a mirror. What does that mean?
Value proposition is a mirror. Really, that's the metaphor.
Okay.
I had one, I didn't bring it in with me because I usually trot it around with me. But if you think of your value proposition in a mirror, then think about it that your buyer is looking into it. And when they're looking into it, who do they see? Do they see themselves or do they see you? And if they see you, I'm not necessarily going to take a step forward, right? If I see myself, it's human nature, right? Well, that's more interesting to me, really, at the end of the day. So when you think, so a quick way to do a mirror check, as I call it, is if your value proposition starts with the name of your company or with the word we, I can tell you which face is in the mirror. It's your company and your product. So right out of the gate, you're doing the same old kind of value prop. So that image of a mirror is a good way to look at it or to think about it, because that's really what a value prop should do.
Okay. And then the third point that you made in terms of benefits, what was that one?
You're able to create sales messaging more easily because you start out with a value proposition that's already in buyer language and leads with buyer issue,
Mhm.
then pulling that through into messaging across different touch points or different cadences will be that much easier, as opposed to literally having to start from scratch or just delivering this product thing and kind of winging it, you know?
Well, let me talk about the winging it piece, because I think what happens sometimes when we have conversations around the importance of value prop and power messaging and things, and I think the concept is understood, but it's hard to take that to actually getting a deliverable piece of work that can be used. And I see a lot of people kind of making it generic, right? Where it's like, we can save you time and money, or, sure, everybody might want to save time and money, but that's not a unique value prop.
It's
So I wanted to be clear that
right.
it has to connect a little bit more to that buyer's specific needs and circumstances. And it could be by, we understand that in your industry, this is what's happening. And, so they just have to maybe speak from a level of understanding and expertise, or it'll be seen as just kind of cliche.
Right. I mean, everybody does say that, time and money, but they'll never tell you how much time or how much money. That's the generic statement. If you can say, verifiable, you can quantify it, and you can offer third-party proof, that becomes very compelling.
Mm-hmm.
So people in your industry, on average with our solution save anywhere from 10 to 15%.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm in a meeting with someone, I might want to add in, another company that they're aware of. When they work with us, these are the results that they saw. So you're really making a much more credible thing, and you're not making a generic statement. And I think that's really important. Most value props I see have a lot of generic language in them.
I'm so glad that you used that example, because really it is just changing it up a little bit and adding a few more words that make it more relevant and more engaging.
Exactly.
So for those people that are on the line saying, well, gee, I need to like refresh my messaging and figure out this value prop thing, what recommendations do you give them to get started to do that?
So let's step back just for a new decade point of view, right?
Okay.
You really need to kind of assess. I think there's like 4 things you need to do. Assess your current value props, okay? Bring them all together and take a look at them, highlight, which of these are totally product focused. Is there any buyer information in here? Highlight all the generic statements. What have I got? And by the way, do any of these fit together? Like, are there, some of these solutions are combinations of your product. Do those messages actually make sense when you lay them out? The next thing is introduce yourself to your targets or your personas. Are they still relevant? Are there any new ones that are coming in? Who should we really be addressing, right? Are we addressing the right people? It's amazing how many people are aiming at a target and their language and their value prop are not presented in that way. I had a client who had a technology platform aimed at marketers and PR specialists, and all they talked about was the tech in very technical terms. And those two audiences aren't drawn in by that.
Mm-hmm.
So disconnect between their audience and the way they were talking about their offering. The other thing is, and I think the last one, the 4th piece is, a lot of company speak that I see in value props. And what do I mean by that? Your language, your acronyms, or you throw industry acronyms in there because you assume everybody understands what they mean, which is not true, by the way. You end up pulling interior language in that doesn't really make sense to somebody on the outside.
Yeah.
So you want to take an inventory and look at that. Those 4 things will give you kind of a little task list. Here are the things I need to change and update. And that would be the way.
I like that. I like that a lot. So I'm going to have you like just 1, 2, 3, 4 that again. So you're going to review all of your existing materials.
Yes, you're going to audit those value props and look at where the weaknesses are. You're going to reintroduce yourself to your targets and personas to validate, are they still important? Are there any new ones? Should any come out? You're going to translate out, you're going to do the mirror test. That's the 3rd thing you're going to do. And then you're going to do, you're going to pull out any company speak and any generic language.
Okay, that sounds great. That's a good list of some things that people can take action on right away, which is what we like to provide in the show in the 30 minutes. Also, you sent me a slide to share as a visual, but not to digress from like the content on the slide, but more like a step-by-step map or a one-page map. This doesn't have to be difficult, right? So
Exactly.
I'm gonna show that map up there, and
Yeah,
maybe you can just talk to it for a moment.
absolutely. A lot of people think of value prop as an elevator pitch, and you can get to an elevator pitch, but there's a lot of work that you have to do. This is a value prop platform, okay? It's your platform for messaging, both marketing, content, and sales conversation. So you start.
Well, I know that when we first started, you said that there were some high winds around your house, and I'm thinking maybe they got the best of you, Lisa. We might have even lost connection.
Right? Now that I know exactly where I'm going, then I can start to nail down what are the issues, business issues, objectives, goals that that target audience is most concerned about, okay? And then I can use that to build a piece that you don't often see in value props, which is a buyer objective statement. I take that list of business issues and I craft a 1 to 3 sentence description. Here's what you're facing, or here's your key issue. So that's the first step in being buyer focused. The beginning of my value prop is about them, in their language, about their issue. Then there's the offer statement, the company offer statement, and you just narrow it down to just those pieces of your offering that are specific to that buyer objective statement. Then you follow up with the differentiators, okay?
Yeah.
Which is quantifiable. Now, the big part you never see is what makes it bulletproof. I add 3 more pieces. Value drivers. What's the top points of value in the mind of your buyer that they're checking everything against? Quantify each one. That way you'll know it's real and it's important. And then provide third-party objective proof, whether that's a customer testimonial, a case study, an industry expert, statistics from a market analyst, whatever you can back it up with third party. And there is your platform for all your messaging.
Yeah, that as I'm looking at that, I have it here right in front of me as well. And when I think about if let's say there's a prospect and you need to even present a proposal, going through this same kind of thought process around what's the business issues, what are their main objectives, what's the company offering, what's your differentiator, that's going to help you create that value prop to put into the proposal or to put into your presentation.
Exactly. That really is that roadmap. I can use it for presentations. I can pull some of that content. I can expand. Like if I look at my value drivers, if I'm building out a cadence of sales emails, I could drop one value driver and create a piece of content or some messaging for each one of those touches. I might put one in a voicemail message. I might put the next value driver in an email message. I might take the third one and we have to actually have a piece of content or a case study that kind of explains it. I might add that. So I'm kind of dripping the message, and every one of those messages has value because it's what they're already thinking about.
Yeah,
so
and that kind of goes back to I don't want to say it's an easy way to create a sales message, but it kind of is. But the beauty of it is once it's built out, then what you're talking about is making marketing a whole lot easier or repurposing it so much easier.
Right, and the messaging that goes out from marketing and sales is consistent and integrated. I don't like starting with a blank sheet of paper if I don't have to. And I think, lots of training programs have, modules or, that, here's how you write a power message. And here's, what? You know why they have to do that? Because we're not providing it for them on the marketing side. We're not giving them enough tools to do that because we don't understand the role. We don't talk to customers, which is a problem, or buyers. So this helps simplify that whole process. So everybody's using the same language, the same key points. The delivery might be different, but the core message, theme, story is consistent. And I think that's the big challenge.
Yeah, I think that something else that I see is that a lot of small and mid-sized businesses don't have a fully funded and focused marketing team to
Right.
do that for the sales organization. So the responsibility ends up falling on the sales leader or the salespeople to come up with those. Maybe the
Right.
marketing person is more tactical and not creative and building those types of messaging, which is another reason why we can take some of this stuff and just go build it on our own if we need to help improve our own sales process.
I'm actually starting a project with a smaller company where there is no marketing. And we're sitting down with the 3 co-founders who are also selling, and they have one
Mhm.
sales guy, and then the 3 of them, and we're going to build out this one pager
Yeah.
because they have nothing in terms of value prop. They have no one to create it. And we're actually going to iterate that together so that they have that roadmap and they can pull from that for everything that they do.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. Actually, I wanted to make sure that we shared your information with the folks that are on the line today in case they wanted to reach out to you for exactly that or have any questions. And so I'm going to share this slide here that has your contact information. And what's the best way to reach out to you? Is it socially through LinkedIn or email? What do you prefer?
LinkedIn and email. I'm all over both, which is really, really easy. I also have a website that's dedicated to value props called
Okay.
valueproposition.expert, and there's lots of good content there that might be helpful.
So that's valueproposition.x.
Expert.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure that we mention that in our follow-up to the group. And is there anything that they can get from that site? Is there any kind of downloadable resource or something that they could listen to?
A grouping of blog articles all breaking down this with examples. There's video there. I have a book called The Value Proposition That Sells. There's a chapter downloadable there. I also have an infographic that might be really interesting in terms of what are the key things that buyers are looking for from my study. So lots of really good resources there.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right, well, we'll send people there for sure, Lisa. And I appreciate you spending some time with us today. Is there anything else maybe to wrap it up that's kind of important to you or that you've seen that you want to just make maybe the audience feel a little bit more comfortable that, hey, this is necessary, but not too difficult? We can simplify it.
I think what I would say is I'm a marketer and a seller that I really don't like elevator pitches, but I know that they're a necessary evil. What I'd like you to do is get your head out of the pitch a little bit because most of them are pretty weak and mostly because you haven't really done the foundational work to get to a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
So new decade, up your game, right? One page, nail down that message, and then you're going to be able to pull things like the pitch and the tagline that are going to be impactful. They're going to make you stand out. A little bit of extra work will differentiate you simply for the fact that you are being buyer focused.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Wanted to share a slide with our audience because you'll see this just got announced to the public socially today. So I wanted to share it with our group. The Race to Amazing first spring retreat is coming up in May 18th through the 21st. And this is going to be a lot of fun, but it's also a great time to focus on you, focus on your business, kind of detox. And Eddie and I will be the hosts of that retreat. So if you're curious about that or interested, check it out online, racetoamazing.com/retreats. And also all past shows can be heard and watched at our new channel. And you can go to gotostage.com. It's the Krista Moore Show channel. And there's also other video out there. It's kind of like a YouTube station. So there's a lot of business learning to be had out there. One last announcement. Next Wednesday, I'm putting on a webinar that is going to help our audience, help our community understand how do I train and develop in this crazy digital world. So we're going to be talking about top books. We're going to be talking about top sales influencers. what are the new adult learning methods so that we all continue to learn, develop, and grow in our careers. So I want to be a resource for you and get you that information. And that's next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time, same day as the show. So I will see you then. Take care. Thank you.